Hello there, dear viewer, and welcome to haQ attaQ. My name is Jakob, and in this video, I'll be talking about workflow. I have two distinct types of workflow, and the apps I choose for each type of workflow is very, very different. And so if you are not a beginner when it comes to this type of topic, then if you want to add your 5 cents into the comment section, then please do that because it would be immensely helpful to any beginners reading the comments down there. Ever since I started featuring AUM in my videos, a lot of people have been wondering why I would use AUM over any other music production app or any other DAW. Now, this is a question that popped up quite recently after I posted this video. So this is basically me doing a one-take live mixing session using AUM and several instances of Spacecraft. So I was basically mixing it all with my Nano Control Studio, where I had mapped out pretty much every button, knob, and fader on this controller. Now, I'm not going to explain the whole session, that's for another video, but what I will say is that someone asked me what would have been different if you would have made this project in something like Cubasis. The confusing thing in this would be my answer to that, because my answer would be this project would not have happened if I started in Cubasis. And it's all due to the way I work when I'm using Cubasis versus the way I work when I use AUM. And it comes down to workflow. You know, this thing about workflow, it's a very important concept. If you are a beginner, then figuring out your workflow early on is very beneficial to your musical endeavors. And it will actively prevent frustration-based inspiration breakage. I know it's not a good sentence, but whenever I get frustrated in the studio, I'll just stop working altogether. I might lose an hour or even a day, and that is not a good thing. So I'm going to begin by explaining my two types of workflow, what I need for these types of workflow, and also the pros versus cons in each type. So if we start with the live performance type workflow, what I need is a mixer. I need a way to sync apps together, and I need the overview of my project to be uncluttered and not filled with tools and stuff that I don't need. And that is exactly what AUM delivers. So one of the best features of AUM is its graphical user interface. And so here we have a 4-track session, pretty much empty. I haven't loaded up anything, but what can we actually see here? Well, we see input slots, effect slots, output slots, and a volume fader. And that's it. That's what it prioritizes. Now, this is a very uncomplicated, very straightforward view. And I'm not trying to say that AUM is simplistic in any way. No, because it's very modular and there is a depth to AUM that will allow you to build really complex setups. But when you need it to be simple and straightforward, it will do that for you really well because it's been designed that way. The key thing here really is the user interface. It's like it's been tailored for live interaction. Now, apart from the user interface, there's another thing I really like about AUM. The fact that you can MIDI map everything. And I really need that in apps where I'm performing live stuff because I like that tactile experience, which is why I use MIDI controllers. And AUM allows you to map a lot of controllers. And you know what? Check this out. You see, there's even a function for opening up plugin windows. I mean, that's just brilliant. I love that. By the way, if you want to know more about mapping MIDI controllers to stuff inside AUM, I have 2 videos for you. You can find them in the card popping up in the upper right corner and also linked down in the description. Hopefully I've been able to explain why I like using AUM for live type flows. I think you know what I mean. Here's the thing though. So far I've been talking about the pros, but what about the cons? Well, when it comes to the other type of workflow, I want to talk about the production type of workflow. Well, because of its design, AUM isn't really good at that. And so you're gonna have to go look for an app that have been designed with a conventional DAW-like workflow in mind. And before you get angry with me saying, hey Jacob, AUM is a DAW, isn't it? Well, for me, AUM is not a DAW. It is a modular mixer with a multi-track recorder function. It's not enough for an app to just be able to record audio and playback audio in order for it to be a DAW. Not for me. I've been doing this for 25 plus years and it's hard for me to unlearn stuff I've already learned. I do realize that words and terms will change over time depending on how society uses them. But for me, a DAW is always going to be this specific thing. It's hard for me to change my mind on that. And so what is a DAW to me? That's exactly what I'm going to get into now, because now it's time to talk about my production type workflow, which is very different from my jamming or live performance type workflow. So what do I need for that? Well, apart from being able to record and playback MIDI and audio, I basically need an arrangement window where I have a full overview of every bit of material that I've recorded. I need to be able to cut, copy, paste, and move stuff around any way I want, which is why I always go for something like Cubasis. And if we simply just have a long look at Cubasis user interface, we can see that it is very different from AUM. It's got that typical conventional DAW-like user interface. I mean, it focuses on the arranger window, which takes up a huge chunk of the screen. Now, right above the screen, we have important editing tools: copy, paste, select, erase, glue, split, all of that stuff you want when you're doing this type of arrangement type production work. So pros versus cons. Well, when I work with Cubasis or any other musical app that gives you a conventional DAW-like user interface, I feel like I can take my time doing things. I can plan my stuff out in a very different way, and if I make any mistakes, if I test something out, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be written in stone. With something like Cubasis, there is no schedule to follow. There aren't any buttons needing to be pressed, any fader movements needing to be timed. There's nothing moving constantly, like as it is with AUM. I know, I'm kind of contradicting myself because I've already said that I like using AUM for experimentation and fun, but let's not forget that I also heavily associate AUM with live performance type situations. And in those situations, you do have that schedule to follow. Also, AUM does not give you a complete view of what you're doing, what you have done, and where you're going. Cubasis, on the other hand, does. And that is very important to me whenever I choose to do something like producing an album. take my mellow album, for instance, I produced that thing in a time span that was a little bit over a year. And I did it that way because I needed to make sure that whatever I ended up with would be this cohesive thing. I needed each track to have the same overall sound. And when doing work like that, it really helps having this arrangement window-like interface. Because in this thing you can stop whenever you want and nothing is ruined. If you do that in AUM, well, think about it. There is no way to start in the middle of a project in AUM. If you do something wrong, you have to start over and do it again and again and again. And I'm sure that there are plenty of viewers watching this right now that just want to comment saying, Jakob, that's how you do it. If you want to get it as close to perfect as possible, you have to practice. That's how bands do it. That's how they create their cohesive sound. And you know what? You're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. But the thing is, when it comes to AUM, I don't want to practice. And I will justify that statement if you give me a second. I just need to round this part up first. You know, actually checking over my script here, I just feel like I've said everything I needed to say to, about why I choose Cubasis. So yeah, let's just round this up. By the way, I don't just work with Cubasis when it comes to DAWs and music production apps. I actually use 4 of them. And if you want to know why, then you can check this video out that I put out recently. You can find the video by clicking the card in the upper right corner or finding the link down in the description. Alright, so back to the topic at hand. Now, I have explained how I separate my workflows, but I don't feel like I've explained why. Because what is the difference? I mean, that was the initial question. What would be different from doing this project in Cubasis? And well, here's the thing. When I open up Cubasis, I am in production mode. I am here to do a job. It's not that I don't have fun working with Cubasis. I mean, I have fun working with it, but it is a job. I'm here to do a task, to get something done. Well, I don't have that feeling with AUM. With AUM, it's way more spontaneous. It usually starts with me opening up an empty session, adding a few tracks, adding a few instruments, and trying stuff out. So, there is no pressure on me, getting something done. It's spontaneous. That is the key word. I don't know what's going to happen, nor do I want to know what's going to happen, because I just want to have fun. Which is why I don't want to practice anything when I'm using AUM. I'll just set up my cameras whenever I decide to record something and I'll press record. And if I do something wrong, I'll start over. And usually I get it within 10 takes. And wait a minute, that could be viewed as practicing. Oh, I'm so dumb. Well, I don't view it as practicing, so I guess technically it's not. So, as final words, I can add this. I've also been asked if I ever start something in Cubasis and then end up doing something in AUM, and the answer to that question is no. But the other way around happens all the time. I'll start something in AUM and end up finishing it in Cubasis. And I do it that way because of all the previously mentioned things. So, if you thought that this video was helpful in any way, if you learned anything, if you like these types of videos, you want to see more of them, then why not support me and my work here on this channel by pressing the thumbs up, throwing a little comment down below, especially those of you who are well versed with different types of workflows. Just throw in a comment, helping out some beginners reading the comment section down there. If you want to help out in any other way, you could always share my videos. And if you want to help out in a financial way, you have the links here on the side. And you can find my mellow album if you follow the music, the link up here where it says jakobhaq.com/music. I want to thank you so much for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.
I've been trying to find you where black holes bends their light, where stars go to die.